Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What are you doing to bring the truth to the American people? That's today's show. I'll tell you what the mainstream media is doing. Not a damn thing. We have to rely on ourselves to create outlets like the Rob Maness Show to get the truth out instead of letting the American people be completely brainwashed by the regime corporate media propaganda. My guest this week was an early creator of a media outlet designed to get the truth out, and we are proud to have him on. Of course, the people who refuse to believe the truth are always attacking and trolling creators like my guest today. One asked him recently on social media the other day, "What are you doing to fight the leftists, Matt? What have you done?" His response was epic. Investigated the still unsolved murder of Seth Rich and was sued into the Stone Age for it. Investigated the Las Vegas shooting and spent months in Vegas working on that cover up. Broke the doors off the Kavanaugh hearing when our team uncovered it was his mom that was the judge that resided over Christine Blasey Ford's parents' bankruptcy and foreclosure cases. My team broke that Eric Ciaramella story, was the whistleblower on the phone calls. I traveled to nearly all 50 states trying to save the 2020 election. And that response is why I had to get him as a guest to come on the show this week. This man is an honest and straightforward American who loves his country, and he's the publisher of the DCPatriot.com, in addition to hosting the Matt Couch Show, I gave it away, and the 1,000 other things the man has his hands in. He's got so much energy, it makes me tired watching him. My friend, Matt Couch. Welcome to the Rob Maness Show, Matt.
Great to be here with you, Colonel. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's. I know you guys are getting a blizzard up there, so hopefully we'll be able to maintain this connection long enough to do an hour. So I want to call your attention to the Chiron, folks. You'll see, usually I've got a Twitter account under my guest, just like you see on my name. There's a little Twitter symbol. But today, there's a Getter symbol. And it's at Real Matt Couch on Getter because Twitter booted him off the platform not too long ago. Let's dive into that. The whole deplatforming, censorship of facts and truth. Heck, censorship, even if somebody is not telling the truth. What the hell is going on in our country?
You know, it's one of those things where I thought it was coming that I would be banned at some point, but never for what, I did. All I did was share an article from, and I won't go into it because I don't want to see your platform, deplatformed. But I just shared an article from a mutual friend of ours, Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. He's a world-renowned physician. He has a protocol. Basically, it's a preventative protocol to keep you healthy. I'll leave it at that because I don't want you to have to edit this, right? And I shared an article. That was it. An article about what he had said, and that was it. That was their reasoning. That was back early December, I think on December 8th, and they still to this date have not given a response. I filed an appeal, so we're going on 2 months now. My attorneys want to sue Twitter. We're trying to see if they're going to actually respond to the appeal, but they are in blatant violation of Section 230. Most of these places are. Facebook's in a downward spiral right now. I mean, they've lost almost $300 billion in the last 48 hours. It's unbelievable what we're seeing there. Scary, honestly. I mean, I know people are rooting for the downfall of the cabal and whatnot, but, Facebook is an American company. And they do employ, tens of thousands of Americans. And a lot of people make their living on Facebook, whether it's, creating merchandise, selling things, doing shows, selling cars even, so it's concerning. I don't think anyone should be censored, even Facebook themselves. I just think it needs to be fair.
Well, yeah, I'm going to fess up. My largest audience is on Facebook, almost 250,000 folks. And when they take the shackles off, I can reach 1 million people in a week
Right.
with my videos and everything. So that's the main place where my show gets broadcast. But I put it on all of the places where I can stream live to, including Twitter. I've got about 10% of the followers that you have. So I'm not very big on Twitter and Getter and everything. But you know what? when they suppress it, it's so obvious, and it doesn't bother me that Facebook's losing a little money this week because they started suppressing my show last week again. And I had a great guest, Matt Lohmeyer, the Space Force Lieutenant Colonel that had to leave the military because of his book about Marxist policies in the military, and people loved it. I'm getting a great feedback on the show, but where a show like that a month ago would have gotten maybe 150,000 views in the first 6 hours and maybe 250,000 over the first 3-day period. It's like at 3,000. And I know people are loving it and sharing it because you could see the numbers. But,
I wonder.
So these guys, I mean, they do things. They give you hints like the last 48 hours. I've noticed that all of my video views have been blanked out, and they came back this morning. But they're really low instead of what they were, So, I mean, it's just crazy what they're doing. Look, if you're afraid of the truth, then you need to look in the mirror, don't you think? I mean, it just means you're weak, I think, is what Tucker Carlson said the other night.
I agree with that, Colonel. I mean, I honestly think that there's part of me that wonders if their suppression tactics aren't, are they lying about the numbers to discourage people like yourself or myself and others from doing broadcasts. So let's say maybe you really are reaching 250,000 people in 48 hours, but they're not showing you those accurate numbers. They've lost lawsuits in the past. Twitter has regarding that. Makes you wonder if they're not just suppressing the numbers that you see to discourage you. Because, you go, man, that was an amazing show. I had a great guest. What a great conversation. And then you only see 3,000 or 4,000 people watch it. And it's just, man, why are we taking all of our time to fight if nobody hears it? I'm wondering if there's a little discouraging, kind of, tactic to do there. It's a gray area, but I agree with you. Like, and I can't knock Facebook either. I mean, I'm verified. I've got 3 different blue check marks. They've treated me far better than Twitter has, on Facebook. But it's discouraging to see that. I mean, you put on a great show. I watch it every week.
Thank you.
It's phenomenal. And so, I don't know what we do here, but I'm not hearing what I want to hear from people running for office as we head into the midterms. No one's discussing Section 230. No one's discussing big tech censorship. We still have the leaders of Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China on social media. But the former president, 45th president of the United States, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like myself, people like Dr. Robert Malone, we're all suspended from multiple platforms. Something has to happen from our lawmakers, Colonel, to make this right.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know what the answer is. I know Section 230's intent was to protect platform owners from what people were saying, but they're not using it for that, and they're being protected through it for censoring people. So that's the opposite of what the American way is, and I agree with you. I need to hear it from people. I need to hear a whole bunch of things from folks. One of them's got to be a way to stop this from happening. Because look, these may be private companies, but they are the public square, the equivalent of the public square now. And I have a right to speak my voice, whether people agree with me or not, even if I'm not telling the truth, which I always try to tell the truth. And if anybody finds where I'm wrong, please let me know and I'll make a public correction. But some people, that's what they do. They make a living on not telling the truth, comedians and those kind of things. But these guys they even ban comedians, for God's sake. It's satire. The Babylon Bee, it gets taken down all the time. And it's satire. It's comedy. It's supposed to be a lie sometimes.
Right.
So it's incredibly bad. And folks that are running for office, hear us. You've got to have a plan to do this. But speaking of censorship, let's talk for a minute about Joe Rogan and Whoopi Goldberg. What's up with that? So Joe Rogan, all the old gray-haired rock singers that I still listen to some of their songs, and I know who they are, but heck, you probably don't even know who Neil Young is, are leaving Spotify because Joe Rogan had Peter McCullough on and Robert Malone. Malone's the guy that was one of the people that invented mRNA vaccines, the vaccine that's being used against this current endemic. that we're facing now. And McCullough is board certified, very well credentialed, and all they did was speak the truth and the facts, and people are trying to take them down.
Yeah, I mean, McCullough is a world-renowned cardiologist. One of the best cardiologists in the world. When he speaks, people listen. You look at Dr. Malone. He's been the chairman of multiple committees and boards for the NIH. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys are highly, highly credible. Excuse me. And then you look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is not picking a side. He just lets people have differing opinions. And the left, they want you to have an opinion as long as it's their opinion. You can have things that come out of your mouth as long as it's their talking points. As soon as it differs from what they want their agenda to be, they are out for you. The Whoopi Goldberg situation too, tying into that is crazy. She basically says the Holocaust wasn't that bad. The Holocaust wasn't about race. My grandfather, 82nd, was a staff sergeant in the 82nd Airborne, went into the OSS, which, for those that don't know, that's the Office of Strategic Services, which you now know is the CIA. After World War II, was a long-time, government employee. And, he used to tell us grandkids stories of the smells of concentration camps when they liberated those concentration camps throughout Europe. And, I remember the never really cried in front of us, but I remember some watery-eyed stories from my grandfather, who was a guy who could break your hand at 70 with a handshake. They don't make them like that anymore. So it was infuriating to me to hear Whoopi's words. And then to see only a 2-week suspension from The View. Roseanne Barr, a friend of both of ours, Barr gets fired and cancel cultured and literally obliterated off the map for saying nothing near what Whoopi Goldberg did about Valerie Jarrett. And Roseanne, by the way, is a comedian, a very good one. And, it's unreal. So Roseanne gets canceled. Whoopi gets a 2-week suspension. And instead of, instead of just being humble and being quiet for 2 weeks, you've seen the reports like I have. She's beating the drum about how she's being mistreated over this, Colonel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I can't help but laugh because what I'm thinking to myself, people are going to get mad at me about it and what I'm going to say, but it's so wonderful. We do still have a lot of free speech in this country, because without that, we wouldn't be able to have seen how dumb Whoopi Goldberg's real ideas were. And Whoopi's a comedian too, but she wasn't being funny. I mean, all you got to do is go read the thousands of pages of documents written by Adolf Hitler and all of his guys from Nazi Germany that talks about how they want to wipe the Jewish race off the map of the entire earth. The other thing that's great about having free speech is that her ideas are dumb, and we have free speech here, so she can hear how dumb her ideas are from people that know what the hell the facts are. So I don't want to see her canceled. I don't even know that I would have suspended her, but I wouldn't cancel or suspend anybody, because I want the ideas out there. That's the whole idea, right?
Agreed.
Behind free speech is the only thing that's good for bad speech that cleanses it is good speech and more of it. So, that's a modification of a well-known phrase. If you're worried about somebody's speech, then put out more speech. That's what fixes it. None of the censorship stuff and everything, because it makes people not trust people. That's part of the issue. What we have with what's going on with lack of trust in the not the elected government, but the government that's running things in states and this country in some places these days. Wow, it's partly. And I would postulate that it's primarily due to the censorship and the propaganda and attacks on people that want to put facts out that they know are real, but they can't because it goes against the narrative.
100%. It all is all tied together. I was thinking, the other great thing that came out of all this is, who would have thought that we would find out that Whoopi's real first name was Karen? So Whoopi is literally a Karen, Colonel. I mean, who knew, right? The gifts just keep coming with this story.
I didn't know that.
When this broke, everyone started digging in. Her real name is Karen Elaine Johnson.
Son of a gun. You made me laugh, man. I'm going to have to get a drink of water.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's everything we're seeing in this country. You know, they're not looking into what they should be looking into, and it's just, you know, it's like an old school David Copperfield Vegas musician. You know, it's like, hey, look over here, and while you're looking over here, you know, they're doing the complete opposite of what they should be doing. And you did bring up Neil Young, so the only reason why I knew who Neil Young was is because I grew up in the South and I listened to a lot of Sweet Home Alabama as a teenager. So I knew who he was in the song, right? Where it was probably the first real diss album was, you know, Sweet Home Alabama attacking him for him attacking their heritage, you know?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. And still the greatest band in the world, Leonard Skinner.
I can't argue. I'm in Arkansas.
If you haven't listened to Simple Man by Leonard Skinner, listen to it today. Get the words to it. You'll see why I said it's the greatest band in the history of mankind. Neil Young, who takes those guys seriously, you know, except for themselves, and apparently some other ones that are Joni Mitchell and some other people that are trying to get Joe Rogan off of Spotify. But I think I wish Joe hadn't even feigned an apology on behalf of Spotify because he is he's not a conservative. He's not really a leftist. He's an apolitical guy in the middle. He's what I call an American. You know, that's what Americans pretty much are. When you look at our documents, we don't talk about conservatism and liberalism and leftism and all that stuff. We just talking about American values and what we were founded on, you know, and Joe has all kinds of people on. I have all kinds of people on. I've had people on the show that don't agree with me, and that's fine. I go on shows all the time. People ask me to come on their show, and I know they're leftists. So, you know, that's okay. It's okay. I appreciate being given an opportunity to talk about what I think in an audience that is not just an echo chamber. You know, I'm not saying my audience is an echo chamber because I have a very good audience that's very broad based and they keep me straight and honest,
Hey,
which is the good thing.
That's a great thing.
Yeah. So we got the Whoopi Joe Rogan fiasco thing, and what are you hearing from folks in the heartland about this Ukraine issue, Matt? What are folks in your circle, your inner circle, and that kind of thing saying about what's happening?
I think they're probably as concerned as the people in your circle. I mean, it's not going to be the leftist children that are going to be sent off if this thing pops off. It's a concern in that regard. I have a lot of people who think that this is just going to be one of those situations that, you know, we send troops to, you know, Belgium and Romania, you know, and basically it's just a posturing thing. And then I've also heard from some of my military contacts that, look, Russia doesn't have any intention of doing what the Biden administration is accusing them of doing. Seems like, you know, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, thinks that the American intelligence agencies are crazy at this point. From that horrific phone call he had with Joe Biden to where he just lit them up, you know, and said, look, you guys are creating this controversy. We don't have any issues, you know, he's like, I think I would know, you know, he said, I'm the president of a country with 300,000 active troops and a pretty sizable military.
Now wait a minute, Matt, you're going to get me censored, man. You're pushing against the narrative of the regime.
I'm sorry, you know, but you know, he literally just kind of put it in layman's terms. He was like, look, he's like, you know, yes, it's Russia, but we're just as big. Yes, it's Russia, but we've got powerful weapons. We've got 300,000 troops. We've got 3,000 tanks. We've got an air force, you know, and we're not just going to let them invade and take us. And so, and he said, if we're not concerned, why are you concerned? But I think the real concern here is, you know, sons and daughters, and you know, they, you know, in the flyover states where where we are, you know, it's that's where, you know, 75% of your military comes from. You know, it's farmers' kids. You know, it's blue collar, you know, folks that grow up respecting the military and have, you know, fathers and grandfathers and uncles who serve, so they want to serve. It's a family tradition, and so that's the real big concern. it's alarming that we're seeing the Army come out with a statement yesterday that they're going to start immediately discharging anyone who doesn't have. I don't want to say and get you to be platform, but who hasn't been vaccinated. So they're going to. The Air Force, Marines, Navy have already kind of made that sentiment and that statement. I think 600 or so soldiers have already been discharged. Looking like another 4,000.
Yeah.
And it's your show. I don't want to ask the questions on your show, but you have way better background than I do on this. This is your forte. What concerns me after talking to some of my friends, and we both have mutual friends like Craig Sawyer and others, the guys refusing to get this vaccination. These aren't guys in boot camp, Colonel. These are normally your SF guys.
Well, they're SF and they're aviation is what they are.
And that's scary, right?
Absolutely, that's scary and the reason why they're doing it, it's very pragmatic. I mean, there are a lot of I know at least in the SEAL side, there was a big group of guys that put in a religious exemption request, and more power to them. Unfortunately, as far as I know, no religious exemption requests have been approved by DOD at all. The chaplains aren't even part of the approval process, is what I understand. Which blows me away, because I only spent about a little over 3 decades going from the lowest enlisted rank to full colonel and being a commander 3 times. That blows me away that nobody has had a religious exemption approved. That tells me something's not right with the policy. But it's really more pragmatic than even the religious exemption, which is a very serious thing. I would be requesting one myself because I'm pro-life, and I have a big problem when I know that something's been tested or has ingredients in it that are based on aborted fetal tissue. I'm not going to do it. So I'd be asking for one too. But the other reason is even bigger, and why it's special forces and aviation is they all do things that require them to have exceptional cardio and pulmonary systems in order to operate in the environments they operate. In the atmosphere and underwater, they dive, they jump out of airplanes, they fly high altitude. So they know that if they have even a mild myocarditis issue from a shot, that they're done. They're not just done. If you're an aviator, they're not just done from a military perspective. Most of the pilots go on to be airline pilots and become very successful people and very wealthy, creating their own wealth. And they're done on that side too. Even a mild issue with your heart, it's very rare that you're going to get to fly again. And when you add the fact that it's a pulmonary issue too, that just breaks the camel's back, so to speak. And I'm appalled that the commander in chief is actually putting the potential of hurting readiness like we are by forcing these young men and women to take this vaccine that they really have no threat against the disease at their ages.
Right.
Now, if they came out and said, "Hey, everybody over 50, if you're pudgy or you have diabetes, you have to get it," that's a force protection issue, because there are some folks in that category, even in the military. But when you're 30 years old and you're perfectly healthy, the risk of having myocarditis or a pulmonary issue side effect from the vaccine is much greater than you dying or even be having your ability to conduct your duties from the actual disease itself. And I'm trying not to say it because I don't want to say it.
No, I tiptoe around it. I'm
not tiptoeing. I just don't want to use the word because they got these little AI things that search all my stuff.
It's crazy. I'm shooting for my 3rd strike on YouTube on my YouTube channel right now, and I know the tens of thousands of subscribers over there are excited that I keep saying that. But no, you're absolutely right on this. I mean, you're spot on, and it's something that I've noticed too, and nobody's brought this up, but you've probably looked into this because with your military background, and I mean, I know you kind of think outside of the box, which is what I love about you. Which is, we're not hearing anything from the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Iranians, or any of our enemies about worrying about vaccines. They could care less if their countries have them, and that should scare the hell out of America England, Australia, France, those that are our allies, you're hearing nothing from those four big powers, evil powers, about this thing. They don't care. They're not talking. And I've asked around with people that I know, in DC, there's been no request from the Russians or the North Koreans or the Iranians or even the Chinese to get this vaccine if they needed it. None.
No. Why would they?
Because they know it's they know it's they know what it is, right? And so
I'll be honest, I don't have any connections left in the Russian armed forces, but I do have some that are still that are friends that have been in the Russian armed forces. I'll have to touch base with them and see what they're hearing. But I'm not hearing about the vaccine being given to their armed forces at all on the Russian side.
And you would see a media story, right, Colonel, if like Russia had acquired 200 million doses of the vaccine, this would be all over the place. The media would be eating this up, I would think, right?
Well, I would think so. But the media in this country, unfortunately, they tend to focus on us and and their fear of what we're saying, unfortunately, than they do focus on what's going on around the rest of the world. So our information is limited. I have to follow people in other countries to get information, even about my own country.
I'm a dangerous guy. I'm planning an 8-year-old's birthday party on Sunday, so you got to watch guys like me.
I've got my 8-month-old granddaughter here staying at the house with us. She's starting to learn to walk, so that's how dangerous I am. I'm trying to teach her how to walk, and she just said "Papa" for the first time last night. So,
awesome.
That's what I'm up to.
Awesome,
that and doing my getting the truth out, the facts out, everything. So yeah, I'm really concerned about the Ukraine thing from the perspective of, my goodness, what's the vital national interest for the United States or even NATO over there? And I tweeted out not long ago that we were watching in real time the United States destroy NATO by our own hand. When Germany is saying, no, we don't want to ship our weapons to Ukraine or any country that wants to ship them. They won't approve Estonia, which is a NATO member, giving German-made manufactured weapons to the Ukrainians. And I can't say as I blame them. I mean, I don't know what the president of the United States is thinking. He just pulled the constraints off of Nord Stream 2, which is Gazprom and the Russians' natural gas going into Germany, really is to feed Europe, which President Trump had put the kibosh on that. Well, one of the first things Joe Biden did was open that back up for him. I don't know what kind of signal you think that's sending, but that's hey, we're all one big happy family. And quite honestly, I think we ought to have normal relations with Russia. I mean, the Soviet Union's gone. I was part of the military that destroyed that,
right?
Without firing a shot. So, I think we ought to be working towards as normalized a relationship with them as possible. But at the same time, when Joe Biden's saying, "Oh yeah, we'll let you provide all the natural gas," and then all of a sudden, Germany shuts their orders off for liquefied natural gas, which we've just been spending the last few years building the market in Europe for our LNG. Our corporations that have been manufacturing LNG and building ports so they could put it on ships and take it to Europe and other markets that they're trying to get opened up. So there's competition. That's a good thing. But as soon as Joe Biden lifted that constraint on Nord Stream 2, Germany canceled their LNG orders.
Wow.
They canceled their infrastructure builds, and those
which hurts America.
Yeah, that hurts us. I mean, we're one of the few countries that can export liquefied natural gas, unless we get act aggressively to get those markets open to our LNG, then something like the Russians just simply putting a pipeline across is much more attractive to the Germans. But that leaves them with no competition, and more importantly, leaves them open to blackmail and coercion from Russia, especially during the wintertime. And, you don't even have to see it in the open. Like I said, the Germans won't let their weapons be sent to the Ukraine. I think the Germans supply. I can't remember what it was they supplied recently, but everybody else is like sending weapons and all kinds of stuff. Finally, it took Donald Trump to open that up, but the Germans are like sending something like blankets or or tea or to the
Wow.
Ukrainian army. And that's because Joe Biden put us in that position when he opened Nord Stream 2 back up. It's not a really complicated set
No.
of issues, quite frankly. And I don't understand why the Democrats in charge want to politicize with partisan politics our national security. They've been doing it since George W. Bush and the Iraq thing, and all it does is hurt all of us.
Yeah, I mean,
That's all it does.
it's amazing. They give they green light the Russian pipeline
Mhm.
and lift sanctions and then cancel the American pipeline so the gas can double in the United States. It's
Yeah.
completely it's definitely it's an America last agenda just by how it works operationally. And that's not politics talking. I mean, I guess it is politics talking, but my point is you can't even. There's no way that Democrats can argue this. I mean, they're offended and worried about Columbus Day. Whereas the Russians are trying to take basically be the premier power in Europe again.
Yeah.
And that opening that pipeline does that. It gives them the economic advantage. It gives them the power.
Yeah.
127,000 troops on the Ukrainian border. A lot of people don't realize that before, Ukraine separated from the Soviet Union in 1991, it was where the majority of the crops came from that fed, Moscow and Russia as well. So there's a lot at play with the Ukraine. It's not just the pipeline and the territory. And there is, I can go into some other things with, you probably can too with this situation, but there's Ukraine is a very pivotal piece of land. The Russians would love to have it. I don't know that they're going to make a move on it, but at this point in time, we don't look like we're in any position to stop them right now.
Well, historically, Russia, even pre-Soviet Union, has always guarded its what it calls the near abroad very carefully, and the Ukraine is the really what I would call the crown jewel of that near abroad. And in recent decades, we've invited Russia to be part of what's called the Partnership for Peace, which is a NATO project that prepares countries to join NATO, as a matter of fact. And we wanted Russia to be part of the PFP so that things were open and transparent. And you would hopefully never hear what's come out of Putin's mouth recently, which is NATO's a threat to us. If they go into Ukraine and invite Ukraine to be a member of NATO, it's a threat to us. That doesn't surprise me because NATO went out of area into combat operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that was a big mistake, I think, because what made NATO work in the Cold War was that it was a defensive alliance. It did not operate in an offensive manner whatsoever, but it had a huge amount of capability that so it could defend itself and defend the United States too. All the members could defend each other, but only because it was defensively oriented. No matter how much capability they had, it was defensively oriented. And the Russians can now say, since we did those combat operations with NATO, well, it's shown aggression in the last 2 decades, an aggressive behavior. It's gone into combat operations without being threatened. So it's no longer defensive. It's now an offensive alliance. And quite frankly, can you blame them? Especially in the Ukraine, which is the crown jewel of their near abroad, which goes back centuries. Their concern about their near abroad.
Right.
I mean, it'd be like, you mentioned there's 120,000 troops on the border with Ukraine inside of Russia, and there's some in Belarus. Belarus is still pretty aligned with the Russians, and they allow them to do exercises and deployments there. But us talking like this, us being the United States, the president and his team, about Russia like that would be like, say Biden wakes up in the middle of the night tonight and actually has an epiphany and becomes coherent for 10 minutes and goes, man, we got to protect our southern border. I want to deploy, 3 divisions of ground forces and UAVs and those kind of things down to the southern border. And then somebody like China comes in and says, no, you're threatening Mexico, because you want their cheap labor and that kind of stuff, because you've let them come across their border, blah, blah, blah. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I can't really blame Russia at this point for behaving the way they're behaving. But I really do have a concern about Biden and his team telling the Ukrainian president, invasion is imminent. Invasion is imminent. And he's going, no, it's not. I mean, that just tells you a whole bunch of story about the administration's a little bit on the crazy and the information being fed to them.
Right.
A little bit on the crazy, and I used to be in the intelligence service as a senior officer, and I'm very concerned about those between the intel collectors and the collectors and the user, which is, say the president of the United States. So you got that analysis piece in between there. And something tells me there's some partisan thinking going on the analysis side. That certainly makes it seem like it.
No, you're right. And a lot of people don't realize too that the majority of people in the Ukraine speak Russian. There's, they're both Slavic languages, but so it's not like these two groups are mortal enemies. There's a lot of Russian sympathizers in the Ukraine to the Russian government and to the Russian people. But the Biden, regime, as I call them, they've honestly made this out like it's this massive, vendetta and grudge thing. I mean, it's very strange how this is, with it's weird, right? With you've got you got Belarus over there. There's so much stuff going on. I don't know what we're thinking or what they're thinking or who's advising him. But it's a concern to see what we're seeing. Like you said, like it makes great sense. The Mexico example of how would the U.S. feel if China came over, and put 12,500 troops in Mexico City because they didn't like the instability on the border with the cartels and the U.S. Border Patrol. And they said, hey, Mexico's one of our big allies. What's to say this thing doesn't tip over and you guys come into Mexico? Mexico's asked us to help out. So we put 30,000 troops in 4 different cities. I mean, we would be losing our minds as a military in the country, right?
Oh, yeah. We would. I'm laughing, but it's a nervous laugh. We would lose our minds, but rightly so. So there's more, as you mentioned, Matt, there's more to this than just the surface look at it. Now, in the last few days, I think the Biden administration has stopped using the term imminent and started saying the invasion is possible. So that's in my view good.
That's a positive, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that I can't remember which senator was it. Your Senator Cotton that said, "Hey, why don't we just tell them we're not going to invite the Ukraine into NATO? I mean, there's no strategic value to that anyway, and there's no military value from a NATO perspective and a defense of Europe perspective. It's not really it's a concession verbally only. So why not do that? I don't have a problem with that. I'm not interested in having the Ukraine in NATO anyway." Quite frankly, haven't worked in NATO for years and years and years in my military career.
No, I mean it's an interesting take. I mean, if you're the Ukrainians, you're probably going, well, what's the benefit of having these guys as allies? If they're not going to invite us to the table to eat dinner, because I'm sure the Russians are from a military standpoint, channels of communication that are open. They're probably going, look, I don't know why you guys are still even entertaining the United States and all of these folks. They don't even want you in NATO. So I'm sure they use that as a posturing point to an extent. But I agree, would that de-escalate things if you said that, to the Russians, hey, we don't have any intentions of doing X, Y, and Z. I don't know. It's not a bad idea. I just feel like it seems like everything that's happened the last 2 to 4 years has just been an absolute disaster. From everything we've done from a foreign policy standpoint. Now Trump did some great things like walking. Now, it took massive testicular fortitude to walk into North Korea with Kim Jong-un.
Sure it did. Sure it did.
And I've always said this about Mike Pompeo. It's why I have a lot of respect for the guy. Some like him, some don't. But the fact that he flew into Pyongyang, he could have easily been taken. The North Koreans would have loved to have had the director of the CIA, as a political prisoner. And so things that administration did that crossed, that literally, no pun intended here, bridged the gap with those relations. You're not seeing that with the Biden. I mean, I don't think there's even a channel of communications open with North Korea and the United States right now since Biden's been president. The Iranians were put on notice, with Soleimani and what happened in Syria as well with it was like 63 cruise missiles that hit key targets. Mm-hmm. We're not seeing any type of strength, resolve, backbone. To me, there's nothing here that would make any nation go, we better be careful with that Biden guy. He seems like
we are seeing something, but what we're seeing is the North Koreans just fired a intermediate range ballistic missile test off that's capable of targeting Guam. The Iranian-backed Houthis are shooting, are flying drones and doing bombing and missile missions into the UAE at their airport. So yeah, we're seeing some things, and you've got Putin putting 100-something thousand troops on his border, kind of giving Biden the chance to say, oh, no, the Russians are coming, which they may be. I don't want to make light of it, but if the Ukrainian president was saying that, I'd have a different attitude, I think. So yeah, we're seeing some things, and now the Chinese, we're going to let them do the genocide games, just like we let Hitler do the 1938 Olympics. And I think here's my I won't call it a prediction, but my assessment is the opportunity for China to go into Taiwan will be out there shortly after the genocide games complete, when President Xi's momentum is at its height. And if there is an agreement, like some national security professionals said, between Russia and Xi about Taiwan and Ukraine, then you might see the Russians make a move on the Ukraine, and it'll be after the genocide games.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think if China makes a move, Russia makes a move. If Russia makes a move, China makes a move. But I don't think either makes a move. They're definitely coordinated, in my opinion, probably within days of each other. And I think there will be, otherwise, I'm almost convinced if one moves in, you can just turn on, not that I'm encouraging you to watch the mainstream media, but turn on your TV, because the other one's coming pretty soon. The back channels, they're both coordinated, and why wouldn't they at this point? I will not support the I have a new shirt coming out today that I've got to get up here. I've been so busy, and I know you are too. It says boycott Beijing. I don't believe that I feel bad for the athletes that are over there, because I had a lot of buddies that were in the military, that were in the world-class athletes program in Colorado Springs that competed in the Olympics, like a Dan Henderson and a Matt Lindeland, and guys who won medals over there. Yep. But the point is that I don't think any American should be supporting the Winter Olympics, considering what China did. They have not been held accountable for anything that has happened in the last 2 years. The basic shutdown of the entire world economy, millions of deaths, and the fact that all of a sudden everyone's just going to go over there and we're just going to forget what happened and play in the Winter Games. I can't believe that this is being entertained, and I don't want to have any part of supporting it from a financial standpoint, from watching it on TV to. I think if you're a patriot in this country and you truly love America, you will not have partake in any part of watching this. And I'm not the boycott guy. You know me. I don't do cancel culture. But this is the one thing that I just can't get behind it. I can't condone it, endorse it. It's terrible, right? That people are promoting this.
Oh, absolutely. And I work with a group that's specifically opposing the genocide games, and they developed the hashtag genocide games. Nice. I'll be putting more videos out in the next few days about the genocide games, and I'm going to broadcast I think it's the foreign minister in exile of East Turkestan's message about the games and what people can do to support them. And those are the Uyghurs,
Yes.
the Muslims that are being held in concentration camps. And that's what the term genocide games is all about. And for us and our corporate infrastructure and our companies to be continuing to support this country, it's just as bad as what was happening pre-World War II with American companies and dignitaries supporting the Nazis in Germany. It's ridiculous. It's obvious, and we shouldn't do it. And I'm not going to support it at all. Just like I don't support the NFL, I don't support the NBA. I'm not going to support anybody that is allied with the Chinese communists. I'm just not going to do it.
How bad is it that North Korea is boycotting the Olympics and the United States isn't?
That's pretty bad. It's embarrassing.
North Korea has said, they said a few days ago that they will be skipping the Beijing Olympics because of the China-caused pandemic.
I'm sure the left-wing media and regime media in the United States doesn't believe them that China actually caused the pandemic, but I'm going to say it again, just like the last president would. That China virus, people, the China virus. That's what it was, and that's what it is, and they ought to be paying reparations, and we ought to cancel every bit of debt to the Chinese corporations that have all of our debt and the government that has all of our debt. We ought to cancel it, say we're not paying it, and that's the reparations that you owe us for what you did.
Yeah, they also are claiming, Colonel, that they couldn't take part of the Olympics. They had to blame the U.S. a little bit here due to hostile forces and moves and the worldwide pandemic. And they claim that the U.S. and its vassal forces are getting ever more undisguised in their moves against China, aimed at preventing a successful Olympics from actually happening. So, it's they
sure
throw those in there.
Well, maybe the messaging about the 2 aircraft carrier battle groups going into the Straits and operating off the northern in the Philippine Sea is getting through. Maybe that's getting through.
I would say so. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So going back to the United States and domestic, now, Matt, you started the DC Patriot, and I mentioned in my monologue your tweet in response to that punk on Getter, and something. I know you got sued and everything, but can you talk about the Seth Rich investigation? Because you were really the only media outlet that really has done an in-depth look at that. And
sure,
where is that at today? I never hear anything about it.
It's basically, it's in the hands of my attorneys. I have 2 great attorneys, Eden Quainton and Ty Clevenger, who are working, diligently, suing the FBI, suing, the agencies, trying to get information. There's different theories that, we can go down. I mean, it's, just for those that don't know, I mean, he was the DNC data director of new voter registration. He was shot at 4:19 a.m. on July 10th of 2016, shot twice in the back or the torso region in D.C., over on Northwest and Flagler Street. And, we dug in and investigated, but, they were blocking everything from us, autopsy, ballistics. Many guys on my team, Frank Whalen, former head of NYPD homicide for 23 years, Bill Pierce, licensed PI for 30 years. Another gentleman, 25-year Metro SWAT commander, several different, former agency folks. I've got a great investigations team that worked diligently on this. But, originally the FBI said they didn't have any documents, right? They didn't investigate the murder of Seth Rich. Well, now after Ty Clevenger has sued and FOIA requested them to death and then sued because they wouldn't answer FOIAs. And so now they came back. This has been in the last year. And they somehow have 500,000 pages of documents relating to Seth Rich. But they want to give them to us 500 pages a month, which means we'll get it all in 83 years. They're basically trying to JFK us, right? The FBI says it's overwhelming, unduly burdensome, and all that, right?
But they're trying to Pfizer you.
Yes, they're trying to Pfizer us. And so it's amazing how, we didn't investigate it. Oh, we found 500,000 pages. We never had the laptop. By the way, the laptop's in our FBI lockup. We never had it, though, but now we found it in our lockup, right? It just kept, it's still going, right? Mm-hmm. So it's in the courts right now trying to get information in regards to this investigation. They're digging, they're pulling, they're doing all that they can do to try to get information. We follow any lead that we get on this. We take it to law enforcement if we feel it's viable or verifiable. But the problem is, a lot of the times you get to where you don't trust people because we've seen so many people cover and bury things up that if you do give a hot lead to an agency that's corrupt, well, they're just going to go bury it. So that's a concern as well. So it makes it very, very hard to deal with. But we're still fighting for the truth. We're still digging. I don't report on it because to me it's like, no news is good news type thing. They are working very hard. But man, I tell you, they came at me with everything they had. The veracity of the big guns in our country, and it wrecked my life. I mean, that was a mission accomplished. It cost me my health, cost me my marriage, cost me my finances for a while, and I'm blessed. Thanks to God above, I'm back on my feet. But there was 3 years. It was really rough. Investigating and trying to fight for the truth in that. And then of course we started doing. The Las Vegas shooting. We had people to ask us to look into that while we were in the middle of investigating Seth Rich. Spent months in Vegas, weeks and weeks on the ground. And then we just started branching into things. Somebody would ask us to look into something, we would do it. And we've been very blessed to uncover a lot of stuff. But yeah, the Seth Rich thing, I hate to say that we're not going to uncover it, but we're going to try. We're not going to stop, right? But we still don't know what happened to JFK. They've done everything in their power to cover that up. I mean, you look at, Trump was going to release the JFK stuff, and all of a sudden you had three groups that started with FBI, CIA, and NSA that went, hold on there, Baba Louie. We don't think you can release that information, sir, after it was supposed to be released by the Warren Commission even, right? So,
well, I'll tell you what, if he wrote it down on a piece of paper and signed it as the President of the United States, they would have to release it.
That's true.
They would have to release it. It's just interesting to me that I really don't have a dog in the hunt, Seth Rich wise, but it's just interesting to me that story and the Vegas shooter story, they seem to not gather any curiosity from anybody other than independent media folks that are concerned that we don't know the story, number one. But what my concern is, having my background, is we always look for lessons learned on things so we can prevent the next one, because there's always going to be a next one.
Right.
Those two things just seem to be, those two incidents seem to be not causing any curiosity amongst the organizations and entities and people that ought to be concerned about it. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
It's weird. It is really weird.
It's strange. I mean, and the fact that none of the mainstream media outlets wanted to talk about it. They all wanted to dub it a conspiracy. And that's what they did with JFK. They immediately just started. That's when the CIA started coined that term, conspiracy theorists, and I mean, for anyone who says that, they're wrong. I think there are certain things that people are just over the top about. Yeah. I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but when somebody refuses to release information or investigate something that has all sorts of different loopholes and open-ended things, it's concerning when people just dismiss that as conspiracy without looking at the facts. I had so many LEOs on my team, homicide detectives and SWAT guys, Vice guys. I'd say, well, what's a botched robbery? And they would all tell me, Colonel, they'd say, there's no such thing as a botched robbery.
No such thing whatsoever.
They would say, look, the guys that are professional thieves, they can go through your pockets in a matter of seconds. They would not have left a wallet full of cash and credit cards, right, and they would not have left a watch and a necklace and cash and all of that stuff. They claim there was nothing taken, and they called it a botched robbery. The other thing is too, this guy was the reigning back-to-back Metro DC Officer of the Year, one of the guys on my team, which is, they were really, really livid for a while. They couldn't figure out, how we knew so much, right? And and it helped to have some insiders. But and he told me one time we were sitting down for dinner in D.C. and he goes, Matt, let me explain something to you. He said robbers rob and killers kill. He goes, I'll say it again with my experience in law enforcement. Yeah. He said robbers rob and killers kill. He said it takes a special breed that can pull a trigger. And he said your normal thieves are not those guys.
Absolutely makes sense, man. And to get back to the term conspiracy theory just for a second, folks. Look, neither one of us are conspiracy theorists. I have too long of a professional background to be buying into conspiracy theories. But I will tell you this. When somebody that I've never heard of tweets out, well, here's the latest conspiracy theory that the conspiracy theorists that were accused of being that were right about. And it happens like every other day in this country. There are no, as Steve Bannon says, there are no coincidences. There just aren't any coincidences.
No.
And all of these things should be something that we should dig into, especially after all of our experience as adults over the last 7 years. And it actually is being uncovered that organizations like the FBI have done things like sent a spy into a briefing with a presidential candidate and his team, spied on the president using the secret court system, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act system, which it has almost no oversight outside of the judiciary, and we need to fix that. That's one of the other things I want to hear candidates talk about that are running for Congress is we've got to right the ship. If we don't right this ship, we've got a dual track justice system, one for conservatives that supported Donald Trump and one for the leftists that are communists in this country. And the communists are getting out of jail, and the conservatives that didn't do any violence are being put in solitary confinement for a year. And then some of them sentenced to 4 years or more in prison on top of that for trespassing or parading, whatever that is,
Absolutely.
We have got to right this ship. And I want to see some priorities that are better priorities out of one Kevin McCarthy. I heard his list of priorities. And the number one priority ought to be fixing the justice system in this country, because we fail without that. We fail without it. And the whole ball of wax really depends on that, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I had Josh Barnett I was on a show with Josh Barnett on, I think it was Tuesday night on a show called The Independence Gang, and and the question was asked, what are the three things you would have investigated if the Republicans take control of the Congress and the Senate? For me, it's the agencies themselves. It's the FBI, it's the CIA, it's the NSA, it's the judicial branch. I mean, it's that whole thing from top to bottom has got to be gutted. That's where the American people have distrust. They don't trust the FBI anymore. They don't trust the agencies. They don't trust the CDC. They don't trust the FDA. And I think that's got to be there needs to be a ton of congressional oversight hearings, and they really need to get to the bottom of what's been happening with all these agencies. I think that's the number one concern, Colonel, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I'm not hearing from people running for Congress, especially, and I always ask them, is what are you going to do about making publicly available the communications between leadership in the House of Representatives and the Senate and security and command and control and those kind of things, and unclassified in an unclassified way, because we have no ability to get Freedom of Information Act information from that area, and it's crucial to understanding why security failed on one side of the Capitol on January 6th, to have an understanding of where those decisions were made, what the decisions were, who made them, why they made them, in order for it to not happen again, because it wasn't an insurrection. I'm not even convinced at this point, having watched the reporting and researched all the reporting from Julie Kelly at AM Greatness and Darren Beatty at Revolver and those kind of folks, that it was even a riot in the traditional sense that it was instigated by rioters, people, angry citizens, as opposed to instigated by some other entities or multiple entities. and we have too many facts that point in one direction. So we've got to get access to those types of communications, and I understand why Congress exempts itself from FOIA from a legislative debate perspective, but they need to carve out the decision-making process and the command and control process, maybe call it the administrative communications area of what they're talking about, because the Capitol Police should not be exempt from the FOIA.
No, I mean, there's no reason for that. I mean, they're opening up these conspiracy theories to more drama by doing what they're doing. They're not acting like they're innocent in all of this. They're not acting like they want the truth. They're acting like they want to paint a narrative and put one side, on the defensive. And the fact that that they haven't been outraged by the Ashley Babbitt situation. Now, I can go both ways on that, having that most of my guys are law enforcement. I'll just tell you right now, I don't think that if I had an officer who was pointing a gun at me that I would have kept going. That's just me. I've been trained pretty well in my last few years of training with a lot of guys that are very good at firearms, better than myself. And if someone's got a gun pointed at me and says, "Don't go, stop, do not come through that window," I don't crawl through the window, Colonel. That's just me. Now, I'm not condoning that an innocent unarmed female should have been shot in the face. I'm not saying that. But I think there's a lot of things we don't really know about of what was happening that day. I'm not sure we'll ever get to it, especially considering how corrupt the panel is. But I honestly think if they take the House and the Senate back, I think the investigation ends. They'll take control of it, and I think it'll be done. The J6 stuff will be done as it should be. They didn't spend $9 billion in damages in the summer of 2020 across America's cities.
Yeah.
There's not been one congressional hearing about who was behind that. We all know there was George Soros-led rioters and protesters, and we've seen the ads on Craigslist and other places where they were paying protesters all across the nation. They were paid to cause chaos and divide. And so, I mean, I think it's a mess all around. But honestly, I don't know what you do, because the GOP has proven they let the Democrats take control of the narrative, right? They let them control this narrative after January 6th. They let them paint the picture. They already control the media. So you're at a point right now where, you can go on, and I mean, no disrespect to any of these networks, by the way, because I watch some of them too. Like, I like Tucker Carlson. I don't watch a lot of Fox anymore, but you can go on Fox News, you can go on Newsmax, you can go on Real America's Voice and One America News and all the different ones out there. But the problem is, you're not convincing 65% of the country that doesn't watch those networks, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you're not solving anything by going on there and throwing your grievances out, whatever the terminology may be. I think you've got to do it with legislature. You've got to do it swift. You can't care about feelings. And like you said, as long as Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell are in charge, I don't think that happens.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, the former president, Donald Trump, just mentioned that some of these prisoners from January 6th are not being treated fairly, and he would consider a pardon for some of them if it's necessary. And I've been hollering about the lack of due process for those folks for a long time, and I don't condone the violence and all that stuff. Matter of fact, I'm pretty pissed off that they actually went into the Capitol, because it messed up and disrupted the debate that was going to occur to get a lot of information out about this sham election, what I believe is a sham election in 2020. And when that happened, that's what did it. But I want to see the communications. It's available, electronically today. We can get all kinds of things, and if McCarthy and McConnell won't do it, then they ought not be supported anymore. A lot of Republican voters' money goes into those guys' pockets, and that ought to be at the top of their list. To get people on both sides of the aisle, political spectrum, the appropriate due process and the justice system working the way it should instead of this craziness that we're seeing where you got 75 people out of 750 that have been arrested and charged on January 6th that have been in solitary confinement, most of them non-violent. I don't even know the names of the people that have been charged with breaking windows. I know some names of people that were charged with hurting people like Brian Sicknick, but later came out that he died of a stroke.
Right.
And wasn't bear sprayed and those kinds of things. So, and the media and the government on the other side continues to lie about it. So if they won't tackle that, then I'm not going to support them anymore. And I have trouble supporting them in the first place, quite honestly.
For sure.
That'll be it. I'll be done with that, and I'll tell my supporters not to do it either, because somebody's got to stand up and right this ship. And it's not happening on the left. So we're left with one side that's going to have to do it.
I'm glad to hear you say what you said too, Colonel, because honestly, there's very few people in the conservative movement besides you and I who've said exactly the way you just said it. And it needs to be said, and said a lot more by a lot of people. People are upset with what happened on January 6th. I'm in the same. I told the FBI that when they were in my living room 5 or 6 days after the event had happened. They said that, well, we have to follow up on leads. Obviously there's, we got lots of tips that you were working with so-and-so. And I said, who? And they said, so-and-so. And I said, who? And they said, you don't know so-and-so? And I still don't remember. I don't have his name in front of me right now. I can't even tell you. And I said, what? I said, I literally had 2 agents in my living room. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? And the male and the female agent, and the female agent goes, you don't know a such and such? And, it was like the 4th time they'd ask you. I'm like, who in the hell are y'all talking about? And literally, the male agent, he goes, the guy who was sitting behind Pelosi's desk. We had tips that you were working and knew him. I said, no. They said, well, he's from Arkansas. I said, wow, well, there's a conundrum right there. There's only 3.2 million people in Arkansas, and I'm from Arkansas, so I must know him.
Yeah. Was the FBI agents, were they from New York City or something?
No, and the crazy thing is, the one guy, what really, and I got to be honest, because, I'm not going to bash them. They were very respectful with me, honestly. I've been around a lot of feds, a lot of law enforcement in my career. They were very nice, very respectful. I didn't feel intimidated or threatened the entire time.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, and so I want to give kudos to if they happen to see this, that I'm just being honest, they were very respectful. And I think we've got to do that as a lot of people will say, oh, well, they did X, Y, and Z just because they want to paint them that way because everyone else is painting them that way. The 2 agents that came and spent 25, 30 minutes with me were kind, respectful. And we had we even shared some laughs even. I told them exactly what you said in your speech right before I kind of went on my little rant here, which is, I said, what upsets me the most is there were some agitators who were probably Antifa, Black Lives Matter, mixed in with some feeble-minded patriots. And unfortunately, they cost us the opportunity to hear our side and have our side heard and have our concerns voiced. They stopped the ability to send votes in Pennsylvania, and Arizona, and other places back to the state legislature, like the Constitution says can be done, and they stopped the chance of that even happening, and so that's why I'm upset. And I'm a historian. I love our history as a country. Anyone who broke windows or destroyed that hollowed ground, I have a problem with. I really do. I'm sorry. And maybe I shouldn't apologize, but we have to take some responsibility here, as and say, look, that wasn't okay. It's not okay to break windows in a 200-year-old building, right?
Right.
It's not okay. It's not okay to store, to desecrate a building that has so much history behind it.
Even that, though, it's not okay to attack the Federal Justice Center in Portland, Oregon.
Right. Correct.
It's been attacked either. It's just not. It's against the law.
Right. And attacking police officers. Like I'm like you. I was at the Ellipse. I was sitting 3rd row in front of the president that day in Washington, D.C. I had a 3-person security detail. We didn't leave till about 1:30, 2 o'clock. You can see me standing in front of the stage at that time on C-SPAN, CNN, Fox, all the different networks that were covering it. And it's not like the FBI didn't have that video, right? My security guys, just so you know, they said, look, we can't protect you there. All hell's broke loose. We don't know if they've sacked the Capitol. That was literally the words. We don't know what's going on. They said, but you're not going. We can't protect you. I had a girl who, a friend of both of ours, Nicole Grady, who was with me, sang the national anthem at Faith and Freedom, is a great friend of both of ours. And Nicole was like, hey, she's like, I don't think we should go. And I was like, no, we're not going. So, you've got a pretty girl and security detail, and they say, let's go back and have a bourbon and a club sandwich. You didn't have to talk me into it. In 20-degree weather to not walk 3 miles to a riot or whatever was going on at that time.
Right.
And I told the FBI everything I'm telling you, right? I mean, it's just, there's nothing to it. It's a nothing burger, but I've had hit piece after hit piece written about me from that day. It's disgusting how the leftist media continues from Rolling Stone to Raw Story to Right Wing Watch. It is absolutely disgusting. Daily Beast. All of these people can write slanderous, libelous pieces about people like you and myself, and they get by with it. Corrupt judges toss it out. When you and I sue for them defaming us, they toss it out. If you and I say something, like he wore shoes that were tacky, they're like, they'll let that drag on for 3 years, Colonel.
I know.
Bury us financially over you and I saying a guy who had an ugly pair of shoes.
I've got one out there on me that's staying alive.
It's unreal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but you know what? It is what it is. The issue that I have with all of that is, if you want to be a free press, then be a free press. At least tell the truth and put the facts out there.
Amen.
And tell people when your opinion stuff and when not, be obvious about it. I try to do that, but sometimes one slips by. But these people in the big ones, they never apologize. They never admit they were wrong. And it's just crazy. Well, Matt, thank you very much for coming on. Now, the week after this show, my guest is going to be Taylor Hanson. He was standing next to Antifa BLM guy John Sullivan, and within a few feet of Ashley Babbitt when she was shot. So it's going to be a big show. There's some new information that's come out that he's been able to report on finally. Had him on early after the incident, but he couldn't talk about a lot of stuff. So this time he's going to talk about it. So the next show, be sure you watch that one, because I think we're going to get some more information about Ashley Babbitt's murder. And I do believe it was a murder based on what Michael Byrd himself said on NBC when he said, I didn't know who I was shooting at. That's a murder right there.
Yeah.
That's way beyond any use of force policy that I've ever either signed off on, and I have done many, or been responsible for following. So tell folks how to find you, and real quick on anything that might be coming up that we need.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got it there below me here, the dcpatriot.com. That's our news site. And then faithandfreedoms.com is my apparel brand. If you ever need a cool hoodie like I'm wearing right now, you're more than welcome to go there and check it out. We have stuff most of our stuff is faith-based. The pastors I run with are not happy about the one I'm wearing right now, but it's cold and it's my snow hoodie day. But, and of course I'm at Real Matt Couch on Getter and Gab and Telegram, Facebook. I'm on every platform right now but Twitter. That's the one so you can find me at Real Matt Couch. And Colonel, it's been a complete pleasure and honor to be on with you. Always love our conversations.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. I was so happy to get the opportunity to develop a friendship with you over the last couple of years. And I've always admired what you do, and want to make sure that the word keeps getting out there. And I appreciate your mentoring and support on my little efforts here. And we'll continue to grow them and get out there and get the truth out and highlight the regime propagandists as often as we can, because it just pisses them off. And I love doing that.
Amen. Amen. I couldn't have said it any better.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
All right. God bless, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Matt Couch, publisher of the DC Patriot, great American, fine Christian man. And remember what I said to him at the end there. Next show, we'll have Taylor Hanson on. He was standing right next to Antifa BLM activist John Sullivan, who got paid $70,000 to be on for his video on CNN when Ashley Babbitt was murdered by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd. It's going to be a great show. then make sure you share this one, because Facebook is suppressing the information. Until next week, I'm Rob Maness.